religion is what creates an ethical framework in our lives. Not only an ethical framework, but it also regulates values in our lives. And this notion is not just confined to one particular religion only. All the religions are a foundation specially giving the moral essence to life. They make each and every one of us to differentiate what is good and what is bad, to differentiate, to understand the difference between what is good and what is bad. So, with that, with the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem, today we are here at your doorstep to discuss one of the most important topics in our episodes. We'll be discussing about Buddhism and the importance of Buddhist cultural philosophy in connection to Asala Maha Perahera. So, we have kindly welcomed Venerable Dr. Wattegama Subhavi Thero to discuss this most important topic. We welcome you, Bante. As a matter of fact, Thero, now let's get into the topic of Buddhism. Buddhism, the most frequently asked question about Buddhism is that whether the Buddhists follow a certain leader or that we follow a doctrine. That is a burning question of the day, sort of. So it would be important to make that in connection to, let's say, the importance of Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist philosophical culture, and the tradition that goes with it.
Pumi, first we have to look at the difference between religion and a philosophy.
Yes, Bhante.
Now, a religion usually comes from a person or a god which is not be born in the planet Earth, but coming somewhere else, maybe
yes.
heavens or somewhere else, and they are deriving some kind of teachings, and there's a messenger in Earth, and he gives these messages to the normal people.
Yes, Bhante.
Now, Buddhism is different in that case because the Buddha was born as a prince in the human world.
Yes.
And then he saw the suffering, he saw the world, and he understood that this is not the life, this suffering is continuing and we have to stop it. So he made a decision to find the ultimate happiness, the ultimate goal of the life, and that's when he set out from the palace and tried to find out what about the life. And then he understood. He went outside, he met teachers, but then there he couldn't find the answer. So then he took the question to himself and he analyzed it by himself and he understood it. And at that day he became the Buddha. So the journey of his is not about someone who has given him knowledge.
Yes.
He got his knowledge by his own. He analyzed it in his mind. Yes. Under a Bodhi tree, not somewhere else. Under a Bodhi tree, he meditated and he understood this whole Dhamma, whole teachings. And then he got enlightened, understand this system, how the suffering, what is suffering, and what is the cause of all this suffering,
yes,
and then the cessation of the suffering, and the pathway to cessation of the suffering. So for these Four Noble Truths he understood by himself, and then he started to give this message to the people. So Buddhism is a philosophy that has understood by himself by the Buddha, not derived from any gods or other force. And this philosophy is not just a philosophy.
Yes, Bhante.
This philosophy is a pathway that you have to practice. If you don't practice it, how much literature you have, it doesn't matter. So this is a very practical pathway that you should walk, that you should practice and attain, or to go through these goals, you have to practice. So this is one of the key difference between a religion and a philosophy. And the significance of Buddhism is it's not just a philosophy, it's a pathway, a practical pathway with the philosophy.
Yes, Bhante. So, in connection to this importance, are there any specific values that we can add in connection to this Buddhism and in relation to this philosophical importance, the cultural values that we have, the core values?
Yes. Pyumi, now we have to understand, now anyone can argue, right? If you see the Buddhist culture, right? The Buddhist culture, you can see that it's very colorful.
Yes.
The Buddhist culture is very colorful. But the Buddhist core values talk about simplicity. Now, that is a question that many people have. Now, the Buddhist values talk about, the Buddhist core, Buddhist teachings talk about being simple, having a simple life, living in a simplicity way, right? So a simplicity lifestyle and a simplicity mind style, right? Not a complicated mind. A Buddhist shouldn't have a complicated mind and a complicated lifestyle.
Yes.
But when it comes to Buddhist culture, now we can see that all the cultural things are very colorful. They are very, they have everything. It's so decorated and it's so complicated. Now we have to check what's the difference between those things, and this is a burning question that people get usually.
Yes, of course, Bhante.
So what we have to see is that we have the Buddhist culture. Yes. So Buddhist culture is a place that people live, right?
Yes, Bhante.
It continues. So how does the Buddhist culture appear, or what is the cause of the Buddhist culture? Now we have to see that what is the cause? Who defines the culture? A culture is usually based on the literature of that specific, let's say, religion or political system. They have a literature. So when it comes to Buddhism, the Buddhist culture that we have is based on Buddhist culture, Buddhist literature. So if you take the Buddhist literature, you can find Jataka stories, you can find other stories, and then again some incidents. Even in the time of the Buddha, there are kings and other people who are high caste people who have come to meet Buddha, and then they have talked and they have acted in certain ways, and they have done some rituals, and those rituals, how they have acted, and these things come to the culture. These things come when it comes to practice. These things, we take those events
as the culture.
As the culture. So it directly impacts the Buddhist literature, directly impacts to the Buddhist culture what we have now.
They go on a par with each other.
Definitely. Like say in the Dalada Maligawa, every Wednesdays they have some kind of special rituals.
Yes,
right?
Bhante.
So it's not based on someone's thinking or someone's idea. It's based on how the Ananda Thero, who is the person who always looked after the Buddha. So how the Ananda Thero helped the Buddha,
yes,
or how he did his rituals to look after Buddha. Now the same thing we are practicing now as the culture. So this culture that we have doesn't come like out of thin air. It doesn't come. It has the base of the Buddhist literature, right? So now we have to check what is the cause of the Buddhist literature. The Buddhist literature, it has come from generation to generation without writing, yes. So in the time of the King Wattegama, they started to write it down
indeed,
because to preserve it
more.
And this literature is based on the Buddhist philosophy. Right? So the Buddhist philosophy, yes, it is a pathway, it is a practical pathway, it talks about simplicity, yes. But that is the Buddhist philosophy that a person or a monk or a person who loves to or likes to attain Nibbana should practice this Buddhist philosophy. But when it comes to the Buddhist literature, from the Buddhist philosophy, because the Buddhist philosophy supports, or because of Buddhist philosophy comes the Buddhist literature. Because of the Buddhist literature comes Buddhist culture. So you cannot say that if you cannot remove the first two stages, the Buddhist culture. If you remove the Buddhist culture, then it directly affects the Buddhist literature. If you remove the Buddhist literature, then it affects to the Buddhist philosophy. So actually the Buddhist philosophy is guarded by these two things, the Buddhist literature and the Buddhist culture. So normal people, what you see in the normal daily life, if you come to Dalada, Maligawa or any other temple, what you see is Buddhist culture, yes. But inside that Buddhist culture, it always has the roots of the Buddhist philosophy.
So the people have to be really, let's say, careful in looking into these aspects, because now as what I understood, Bhante, now these three aspects that we just talked about is connected. You can't just learn about one part. You can't just focus on one issue and then forget the other. Everything is like literally connected. Yes, and now Bhante, with this, another question that I got out of the topic is that we have the procession, Kandi Asala Perahara, been processed for so many centuries, connected to traditional and cultural values, and it's like really important, and we continue it in utmost ceremonious way and grandiosity. Before going to the grandiosity section to talk about the ceremoniousness of this Buddhist culture, let's just pay our attention to how we go through this now. For many centuries, as you've said, with all these connections, we have come up to this point, the 21st century. And the traditions in some cases had been altered. In the early histories, of course, we had several different traditions, and later on with the colonizations and cross-cultural attributes, of course, it has this alternatives had been added, and a lot of differences had been made. But rather than that, now when there is a difference between these connections that we talk about, let's say for instances we deviate our attention to this traditional sector. There are beliefs, there had been prioritized rituals for the kings along with the officials and also the citizens to continue this. So the point that I'm trying to make is, now the people in 21st century follow this up as a tradition, but it would be really interesting if we let know the audience that is this ritual, are these traditions being taken for the sake of continuing the lineage?
Yes, Bhumi. Now, let's see what a culture means. Now, a culture is a living thing. So a culture, it's always bound to be changed. You know, nothing is permanent here. Right?
Yes.
Everything is impermanent. So it changes. A culture should be changed. It's a universal law. Right? Whether we like it or not, it changes.
Yes.
According to the time, maybe some kind of natural events. Now these days we have the COVID. Now our whole culture is changed. Right? So there are natural causes, or maybe wars or any other incidents. Culture always changes. Right? So in Buddhism, even we have to. I will never say that we have to stick into these cultures, or we don't have to. It's not good that we try to hold on to these cultures, because culture is always changing. Like you said, from the time of the Buddha until now, it's more than 2,500 years.
Yes, of course.
Right? It's a long time. So they are changing every day, every time to time, they change. So cultures change. Traditions, they change. And they are bound to be changed. Right? So sometimes we have this fear that, oh, our culture is changing and our traditions are changing. Yes, they will change. But when it comes to Buddhism, it's not about the culture or the tradition, what we are always valuing or what we are always focusing. It's the Buddhist values. So even in our cultures, do we still have the Buddhist values? That's the most important question that we should ask.
Yes.
So time to time, these things are changing. Like you said, we had a good culture, we had a rich culture, and then again we had problems. We had colonial powers in Sri Lanka and all over the Asia, and it changed.
Of course.
And the laws were changed, and there are several things that we have to, some cultural things that we have to remove because of the laws that they have imposed on us. So it changed. But do we have the Buddhist values on those things now? That's what we have to check on those. That's what we have to do the research on, right? So let's say about the Asala Perahara.
Yes.
Right? So now the Buddhist core values, the Buddhist philosophy is talking about usually all beings, right? So they are with these defilements. They're always with the defilements in their minds. So these three main defilements: the lobha, dvesha, and the moha, right? The lustful things or the craving, right? And the anger or hatred and delusion. So these are the normal beings, how they are living on these three, based on these three things. Now Buddhism is talk about the opposite of those things. So Buddhist philosophy doesn't encourage craving. It doesn't encourage anger or hatred. It doesn't encourage delusions.
Yes.
Right? So do we find those things in the Asala Perahara? Now that we have to ask the question.
That's a burning question of the day.
It should be the burning question. Now, let's compare our Asala Perahara with the, let's say, other countries. They have these kind of parades.
Yes, of course, Bhante.
They have many kinds of parades all over the world.
Exotic.
Exotic. They are very colorful, just like this. But when we see those things, right? So if we take let's say these parades, some of them, we have to ask the question, these parades, do they bring us calmness or lustful thoughts?
Yes.
Or craving, right? Some of the parades, when we see them, we get angry, we get anger, we don't like them.
Even watching teledramas, when you like watching it, you get so angry that you feel you're the character in it.
We live in it, that's how
we live in it.
We live on those things, right? So there are these parades that they generate a lot of lust inside us, or anger, or delusions. They bring up many kinds of thoughts or new ideas that doesn't help our calming mind.
Yes.
Right? But let's compare those things to the Asala Perahara. Tell me which part, that when you see the Asala Perahara, which part does it generates lustful thoughts? No, you don't find any kind of lustful thoughts. The dressers, right? How they dress, and how the colors are being matched.
Yes, Bhante.
The dancers, do these dancers generate lustful thoughts?
Yes, Bhante.
They don't. The music, the drums, everything, they will never makes you emerge any kind of lustful thoughts.
Yes, Bhante. So this is something important that we have to focus our attention on, because the world believe, and we let's say acknowledge the fact that Buddhism goes along with simplicity, as if it's the core essence of the religion. So to talk about more aspects relating to this simplicity, we'll meet you after a small break.
The Legend of Senkanda, the everlasting glamour of our heritage.
කන්දුඩරට ඇසල මහා පෙරහරේ පින්බර සිරි විසිතුර ඔබේ වන්දනීයත්වයට පිදෙන සජීවී රූප සත්කාරය අගෝස්තු 13 වනදා සිට 23 වනදා තෙක් පෙරහර පෙළහර අනවරත රූප සංග්‍රහයක්ව POTV නාලිකා 20 150 ඩයලොග් TV නාලිකා අංක 72 මගින්ද ශ්‍රී දළදා මාලිකාවේ සයිභාවකාශයන් ඔස්සේ ඊතර මෙතර වෙසෙන සියලු දෙනා වෙනුවෙන් ගෙන එන අන්තර්ජාල විකාශයක් ලෙසින්ද ඔබේ බැතිබර නමස්කාරයට පිළිගැන්වේ. බුදුදහමින් ඔපවත් වූ අපේ සංස්කෘතික දායාදය. බුදුදහමින් ඔපවත් වූ අපේ සංස්කෘතික දායාදය.
The Legend of Senkanda, the everlasting glamour of our heritage.
Welcoming you back again. So this is about simplicity that we talked about. Simplicity is such an aspect that has been derived from, and that has been, let's say, the aura itself in the Asala Maha Perahara in connection to the cultural, ritual importances and the troops, the dancers, the musicians, the whip crackers, and almost everybody who adds this unique beauty bears up a simplicity that can be definitely noted. Because this Asala Maha Perahara is something that not just only a one part of the world deviates their attention to. Youngsters, parents and all the sections of the society comes to here with such an honorable heart to watch this beautiful and magnificent procession that is being taken place. So Bante, in continuing from where we stop, let's just proceed and talk about the other variations that we find, the parts that we find in Asala Maha Perahara, where we see the significant elements of simplicity and their importance.
Again, Piyumi, we have to, it should be a comparing. You have to compare those things, right? So if somebody has never seen the Asala Perahara, never seen any other kind of parades, and if he sees the Asala Perahara itself,
yes,
someone could argue that it's too much colorful, or there's too many things like that. But comparing to those things, right? So like we said, a culture is always, they evolve, right? New things are being added every time, right? We cannot avoid those things, right? So like we said, the culture is a living thing and it changes. Some of the things we have to add, there will be some things that we have to remove. It's okay, it's fine. Those things that happens. But now we have to think about, this, again we are coming to simplicity. The Asala Perahara has managed up to now to keep its simplicity at its best. But there are some things, there are some colorful things that is inside this Perahera. But let's look at it, right?
Yes.
So most of these colorful things are not to bring up someone or someone, let's say. It's not about the king, it's not about even the Devada Nilami himself, but the whole Perahera is focused on the Buddha. So it's an honorable, it's a venerating system, it's an honor to do this Perahera. It's for the Buddha, right? It's for the Buddha. So when it comes to the Buddha, now we have to again, let's go to the history.
Yes, of
So
course.
Buddha himself is not just a normal person. He was born in a royal family. So he has this royal blood, and he derives from a royal family.
Yes, Bhante.
Right? So that's why we always treat him, even in Sinhala terms, we have Budurajanan Wahanse. So we consider him as a king, but not as a normal king. He's a king of the enlightened ones. Right? So we usually, our inside, in our minds, in our hearts, we always have the respect towards the king. Right?
Yes, Bhante.
So he is the protector, especially a king is the protector of the people. So the Buddha is the protector of our minds. Right? He's the person who opened the gateways to the Nibbana or the enlightenment. And to respect him, we respect him in a way that we usually respect to a king. Right? So these the things that you see in the Perahera, sometimes the casket is beautifully decorated, right? It's on top of an elephant. It's not on elsewhere, right? So the elephant is the biggest animal in the land. So we keep the casket, right? We keep the casket on top of an elephant, and this elephant is not just a normal elephant.
Yes.
It should have these qualities, right? It should be tall. It should have his own personalities. So we treat the Buddha as a king, more than a king. So the Buddha gets all the respect. It doesn't mean that we consider him as the highest king, or we are not afraid of him. Usually people are afraid of kings, right? Because the kings might get angry.
Very authoritative they are.
Yes, very authoritative. So the people were they had this scare towards him, respect, plus they had the little bit of afraid of the king, but not to the Buddha. When we go in front of the Buddha, we don't feel fear, rather than we feel joy. We are peaceful.
Peaceful, of course.
We are so peaceful. So even in these days, if you go near to the Dalada casket, you feel that calmness inside you, right? So all the decorations help to bring up this calmness. So the simplicity is that if something brings you calmness, that you can consider that as a simplicity. Because if there are more things to look, if there's such things that when you see those things, if you generate lustful thoughts or anger or delusion, then it's not a simple thing. It's something very serious. But when you see all the Perahera traditional things, they always brings you calmness. It always brings you joy,
yes,
not any fear, not any other thing. So we consider those things as simplicity, because your mind is being simple at that time. Your mind is not, you don't feel a complicated mind, rather than you feel the calmness. Like I said, even the drummers, how they perform the sounds that comes out from their drums, it has a deepened sound.
Yes.
It has a very deepened sound. It gives you this amazing kind of non-destructive sound system.
You're so attentive to what is going around.
Yes, right. So you don't have many kinds of things to get distracted. But these sounds, all the costumes and other things, they bring up all the calmness, concentration, all the Buddhist philosophy that the Buddhist philosophy is teaching. You have this on the Dalada Perahera. So time to time, like we said, there are some changes, but still the Buddhist values are there inside the Perahera.
Yes, Bhante. Since you raised this simplicity with these different parts of the Perahara, now the Perahara in the 21st century at the modern day, we see as a cultural unification, Bhante. We see 4 deities of 4 devalas guard the Dantadhatu, relic casket. And we, even in the procession of these 4 devalis, we find this utmost simplicity being followed. Especially the best example that I can add is this flag bearers who got with the Buddhist let's say the flag bearers with the white uniform that they wear. It itself demonstrates simplicity, and it gives a big message of that calmness and that hidden authority that comes up with faith. Yes, Bhante.
Definitely. And not only the simplicity comes with a discipline. Now, let's look at the Perahara, right? The discipline of each person, even the people who are, like you said, the people who are bearing those flags, yes. Even the swords,
yes,
right? Even those the burning candles that they are bringing up, right? The discipline that they have. Let's keep aside the people. You can discipline people, okay, fine.
Okay.
But look at the elephants that you have, how disciplined they are, right? So you don't see these elephants, they behave in a way like they have been disciplined like people. Sometimes they are more disciplined than people.
And before the Perahara, there is this beautiful event that takes place when before they've been dressed and garlanded to be taken in the procession, they get right in front of the Dalada Maligawa and they worship the Lord Buddha.
Definitely. So that's kind of discipline we have.
They understand.
They understand. And they were well trained. They understand what to do, what not to do.
Yes,
right?
Bhante.
Just like people. Right? So again, let's go to the Buddhist core values. Buddhism talks about discipline. So you can't find any indisciplined person in the Perahara. If someone is there, you don't have that Perahara. So the Perahara is always being disciplined. The people, the way they walk, the way they stop, the way they start walking again. You don't see any gaps between the Perahara, right? Some people are moving fast and the other people are moving slow. No.
Yes, ma'am.
Everyone has the same rhythm. And it's not for like 20 minutes or 30 minutes. This lasts for hours and hours. Still they keep that discipline. So simplicity added discipline. Now that is the thing that we feel. Something is there in this Perahara that we love to see it. We love to watch it again and again.
Yeah.
Right? Why is that? We have to ask the question. Because it is so colorful? No. Inside that, you have that discipline. Like I said, let's look at the other parades that the other countries have. Sometimes they don't have these disciplines. They dance however they like, and you don't have that kind of simplicity plus this discipline. But
in processions and parades especially, street processions, yes.
Definitely. So the Perahara is always they try to keep that simplicity and discipline with them, right? And like you said, you have the 4 devalas, right? The 4 main deities, guardian deities, and they have, each of them have the same system, right? So the main Perahara is the Perahara of the Maligawa, and they have all of these places come together, and they have this lovely disciplined system. And when we see those things, that's why I said, when we see the Perahara, our minds are being calmed, our minds are not being distracted a lot. We are just focused into that because there is simplicity and the discipline. Right?
Yes, Bhante. Bhante, now these rituals that is being followed from one generation to the other, I'm pretty sure that the generation that was previously for mine, that means my parents' generation, is quite having a different perception than us today about the Dhamma Perahara. and even their parents had a sort of a different perception about this. But anyhow, we grasp that at the age where we understand the real core essence of this Maligawa Perahara, the Perahara, the procession, Asala Maha Perahara, along with the other 4 Devales. The procession provides you such an intense grip that you have it in your heart, that you fill with faith. Now, for example, when we were kids, we just watched it because we were watching for the sake of it, because our parents wanted us to watch it. Or sometimes it might be a beautiful element that's going, and sometimes the kid will not be getting this idea. But also there is another section of the society, especially parents, then make it very important to teach their kids this essence. I can remember something from my family, that when we were questioning as to what is this, they taught us these important rituals. So these are being taken from one generation to the other, not only related to the higher credentials that we have, not only with the dignitaries, not only that the dignitaries know about these various aspects, but also each and every society, each and every person talks about it. So in continuing our conversation to something, a different topic, we'll have a small break again.
The Legend of Senkanda, the everlasting glamour of our heritage.
උදතිද සබරි දිකු දලති හස්තිරාජවරු පෙරටු අලියතුන් පිරිවරා නෙක විකුම්පාන සහසක් නැටුම් කරුවන්ගේ රංග ස්වභාවයෙන් මගදෙපස විසිතුරු කර සියක් පන්දම් කරුවන්ගේ එලි චමත්කාරයේ එලි රටා යට විභූතිමත් කන්ද උඩ රට සෙන්කඩ කල මේ සිරිතලතා පෙරහර සමයයි.
පෙරහර රූවරුණා හෙළකලා මංගල්‍යයක රූපමය සිරිය.
මාන්සේ සාරා සංඛ්‍ය කල්පලක්ෂයක් පාරමී ධර්මයන් පිරූසේක
1828 සිට පෙරහැර කරඬුවේ තැන්පත් කරලා දළදා වහන්සේ වැඩමවීමේ සිරිත නැති වෙලා තිබෙනවා. දළදා වහන්සේගේ ආරක්ෂාව සලසාගෙන 1828 ඉඳලා දළදා වහන්සේ වෙනුවෙන් වැඩමවනු ලබන්නේ සදාතක ධාතුන් වහන්සේලා තැන්පත් කළ පෙරහැර කරඬුවයි. අද මේ භාවිතා වන්නේ පෙරහැර කරඬුව වශයෙන්. එදා දළදා කරඬුව වශයෙන් අපි භාවිතා කළත් අද පෙරහැර කරඬුව වශයෙන් භාවිතා කරන්නේ එදා මෙන් අද දළදා වහන්සේ එහි තැන්පත් කොට වැඩම නැති නිසායි. මේ පෙරහැර කරඬුව කීර්ති ශ්‍රී රාජසිංහ රජතුමා දළදා මාලිගාවට පූජා කරනු ලැබූ පෙරහැර කරඬුවයි. මේ මෑත ඉතිහාසයේ දක්වාම එතුමා විසින් පූජා කරනු ලැබූ කරඬුවේ දළදා වහන්සේ තැන්පත් කරගෙන වැඩම වූ නමුත් අද වන විට එම කරඬුව තුල දළදා වහන්සේ වෙනුවට සදාතක ධාතුන් වහන්සේලා තැන්පත් කොට වැඩමවනු ලබනවා. මේ පෙරහැර කරඬුව රණින් ආලේප කොට මණිකෙන් අලංකාර කරලා රජතුමාගේ අගමේසියගේ මාල පළඳනාවන්ගෙන් විසිතුරු කර සරසලා එතුමා දළදා වහන්සේ වෙනුවෙන් පූජා කළේ. එම කරඬුවම අදටත් අපේ සදාතක ධාතුන් වහන්සේලා තැන්පත් කොට පෙරහැරේ වැඩමවීම අපේ ශ්‍රද්ධා භක්තිය බුද්ධාලම්බන ප්‍රීතිය දනවන කටයුත්තක් වී තිබෙනවා. එම පෞරාණික පෙරහැර කරඬුව සුරක්ෂිතව මෙතෙක් කල අපේ මහතෙරුන් වහන්සේලා විසිනුත් කලින් කලට හිටිය දියවඩන් නිලමේවරුන් විසිනුත් ආරක්ෂා කොටගෙන අදටත් සුරක්ෂිතව පවතිනවා. පෙරහැර කරඬුව තුළ අපිට දක්නට ලැබෙන විශේෂත්වය තමයි පළක් දන්ත ධාතුන් වහන්සේ එහි තැන්පත් කොට වැඩම වූ අතරේ අද වෙන විට සදාතක ධාතුන් වහන්සේලා තැන්පත් කොට වැඩම වී
පෙරහර රූවරුණා හෙළකලා මංගල්‍යයක රූපමය සිරිය.
So we welcome you back again. We stopped from these rituals and simplicity and the importance that the society has about the procession. Not only the state officials, the dignitaries, but also the citizens alike has this core meaningfulness in watching the ceremony. Watching this grandiosity and watching this ceremonious procession that is being paraded among the streets of Kandy. Bante, my attention next is to something different. We would talk about different aspects, different parts of the procession, from torchbearers to the drummers and dancers. But most of all, the significant point that people would focus their attention on is this position of women, female representation of the procession. Let's just talk about something related to that.
Yes, Piyami. Now, usually these traditional things, if you take from the history, early history, not in Sri Lanka, all over the world, that we see that the women's representatives, they are always in a lower position. And that's why that the women have to start to take their rights, and
Yes.
they said that we want to represent these things, maybe government,
Yes.
in the parliament. So they ask
Yes.
for this. Now, when it comes to Buddhism, usually in religions, women were not taken as a very significant people, right? They've always been cut off from things.
Yes, Bante.
They were some kind of rejected. Even in some literature, you can find those things, that the women are always being rejected by these religions. Now, when it comes to Buddhism, it's not. Right? So the Buddhism is always, it doesn't matter that you are a man or a woman. Right? Anyone can come to Buddhism.
As long as you preserve it.
Preserve it.
Yes.
And when it comes to, say, practicing the noble path, it doesn't matter you are a man or a woman, you can do that. Even in the time, at the first it was just males who ordained, but after some time,
Yes.
the women got the chance to enter to the Buddhist system. Yes, it had some ups and downs,
Yes.
we can see in the history, but it has its own reasons. But Buddha never rejected them. Right? So this system, Buddha accepted them, accepted women, but Buddha knew that when women comes, you have to have extra protection, you have to have extra rights to them, and you have to protect those vulnerable people. So he had applied some laws or some protective systems, but it's not to degrade women, but to protect them.
Bante, unfortunately, many of the people that we find, many of the people in the sense, the people who are interested in Buddhist culture and this philosophical background, has this question in their mind, and unfortunately some do believe that Buddha rejected it totally. But they don't get into this, they don't get the chance of getting to this concern that he made in regarding the Bhikkhuni Sasana. And that is one of the important points that I got to know from the conversation, that he thought about them. He thought what vital concerns that there should be included in all these disciplinary rules. Yes, Bante, that's a nice, that is a nice point that I got to know, and yeah, that is kind of, yes, definitely nice.
So that's why even now, let's say the society, sometimes we say that the modern society is bad, and modern society is polluted, it's not good, a woman can't go out. Don't think that even the time of the Buddha, it was the same. You had the same issues, So in the Buddhist teachings, in the Vinaya Pitaka, you can find a lot of places that the nuns had problems when they go alone. They had problems. One thing is that the Buddhist culture was new to those days. So
Yes.
people didn't know about Buddhist nuns, or they should be respected, they should be venerated. They saw them as another woman. Right? So they had a lot of problems.
Because of the socio-political background that they were used to.
Definitely. And in those days, it's in India. So India, they had some hierarchies, and they rejected women.
Patriarchy.
They had all those
Yes.
things. So even in those days, the nuns, especially the Buddhist nuns, have to face some kind of difficulties. So the Buddha have to protect them. So the Buddha always said that to monks to look after the nuns, and to nuns he said that do those things, don't do those things, don't go alone. Always a nun should be with another nun. Like that, he had to imply those rules and regulations to protect them. If not, it's usually a chaotic way. Sometimes they have to face. Now,
of course,
even the most respected nuns, they had to face some very massive difficulties. The Uppalavanna Therani, we know that what she had to face.
Of course, Bhante.
So the Buddha was so concerned about those things, and so he had to always protect the women. So this system came along down to even until the days in nowadays. So now let's say how the tradition made up of.
Yes, Bhante.
Now usually, let's say the protection of the tooth relic is always with the men. And why is that? So even nowadays you might see that the Dalada Maligawa is filled with men.
Yes.
Now one might say that, oh, this is bad, women should be represented.
Confined.
Yeah, right? But the thing is that, like I said, the culture is always being changed to some social or natural disasters or effect. So the time when the wars came, there are wars, and the enemies, they try to take the most respected things from that state so that they think that they own the country. Like in Sri Lanka, it was a tradition that if someone owns the Dalada, the tooth relic, he's the king. Right? He's the king. Now, the enemies knew these things, and they thought it's very easy to get the state or get the country
if you
grab the Dalada, the tooth relic. So they always try to attack to this place. So to protect it, always the men have to come forward. The men had to come forward, right?
Yes.
The women were vulnerable. They were not rejected.
They were given the honorable grounds.
They were given.
Yes, I understand.
But in order to protect it, the men had to come forward. So that tradition, yes, it still continues. But it doesn't mean that the women are not respected. They are not welcome. Even in the Dalada Perahera, still you can see the female dancers. They represent. So the Buddhism has not rejected women.
Bhante, with that socio-political concern, I would draw attention to many of the parts in the histories. Now, this aspect of exploitation that we talk about in many cultures, in many histories related to different continents, maybe, countries maybe, there had been slavery. The connection between the state officials and the commoners had been kind of a peculiar situation during that time. It was not so clear, it was so strange. Sometimes there had been severe incidents where the slavery was so tough, and there had been some eras in related to history where the slaves were treated leniently. But it would also be important if we give to the audience this a sense of exploitation. In this grounds, not exploitation alone, how the state officials, how the kings of Sri Lanka had treated these commoners, what sort of a relationship that they had with each other in engaging, especially in engaging in a thing like Asala Perahera. Not only that, in engaging with events related to Buddhist culture and religion.
Okay, Pim. Again, let's go to the history.
Yes.
Let's go to the time of the Buddha.
Yeah.
At the time of the Buddha, we have to know that the Buddha is the first person who is Buddhist, right? So the Prince Siddhartha was not a Buddhist at that time.
Yes, Bhante.
He was not a Buddhist, right? He belongs to some kind of tradition, and then he renounced from the house, from the palace,
yes.
And then one day he practiced for 6 years, and then he gained the Buddhahood. He became the enlightened one, and then he was the first Buddhist actually. Right?
Yes.
So the Buddhist culture, the Buddhist systems, they all start from the Buddha himself. So at the time, you don't find any Buddhist culture there. So no equanimity, right? The social system was a caste-based system, and the hierarchies, they always exploited the lower caste people. They had this, right? So the Buddha had to face this too. Right? The Buddha has to face this.
Yes, Bhante.
So that's why even in the time of the Buddha, there were kings, there were princes who came to the Buddha Sasana, to the Buddhist system. And there are these peasants, these slaves who came to become monks and practice. So Buddha welcomed them all.
He never differentiated them. He never.
He saw only people who are ability to reach Nibbana, not their caste, not their money, no. Right? So the equanimity started from there. Right? So Buddha never disrespect to the lower caste people. Sometimes he took his bowl and went through these villages who are lower casted people.
Yes.
And it was a very joyful thing to these people, because, like I said, the Buddha himself was a warrior clan. He was a king, and this
Could
king
have become a Sakravarti if he did not choose enlightenment. Yes.
Definitely. And this person, this great person, is coming arms for these villages of these peasants or slaves. So that's how he managed to give his loving kindness to these people. So that kind of tradition was built there. And after a few years, after hundreds of years, Buddhism came to Sri Lanka. So even the time of the King Devanampiyatissa, there might have been some kind of different things, but
yes.
After Buddhism is established in Sri Lanka, and the kings were taught that every person in your country, you have to treat them all alike, you have to treat them equally. So even from that time, Buddhism never tried, Buddhist kings, even monks, they never tried to exploit those vulnerable people. Right? So in Sri Lanka, we didn't have such kind of thing as slavery. Now, let's look at the things that we can see in now. Right? So if you go to Anuradhapura, you don't find palaces. You don't find palaces.
Yes.
If there's a palace, it's totally destroyed. But look at all the pagodas, these chaityas that they have. Right?
Long lasting.
They are long lasting. But you can't find any, there might be ruins of a castle or two, but they are not, you can't find them actually, the complete structure.
Yes, Bhante.
Right? So all the people were not asked to come to the palace and do the work and try to preserve the palace.
Yes, Bhante.
Rather, they were directed to preserve the temples and the pagodas or the chaityas.
Especially in connection to Swarnamali Chaitya.
Definitely. Again, let's talk about that.
Yes.
Now, that's a very interesting point. Now, the King Dotugamunu, after he defeated the enemies, he started to construct these temples, these chaityas. So, when he started to construct this Swarnamali Chaitya or the Ruwanalisaya, he had one great order. Right? The king's order was, no one should do their work for free. Everyone should get the payment. Everyone should be paid. So the people, they love to come to this place and build up the chaitya, or the pagoda, voluntarily. But the king said no. Everyone should be paid. So there, it said that there were some army people, or these.
Yes.
This Hevai or this
the gods.
The gods.
Yes.
So there are several guards around this site, and they were asked to watch if somebody is going without any payments. You have to catch him and you have to pay him. So what is any kind of slavery? No. Even the last person, even a small kid comes to that place, he was paid. So
they were appreciated.
They were appreciated. It says that even monks were not asked to do any free things.
Yes, Bhante, indeed.
If a monk comes there and he helps to build this pagoda or the chaitya, he was offered a robe or something. Even a monk should not be do free work. So think about it. The King Dutugamanu was always nourished by the Buddhist philosophy. So in Sri Lanka, we didn't have that. There were no slaves. They were paid. Right? So there could be changes due to some problems because, like we said, we had the colonial powers in Sri Lanka. So in those days, there were some changes because the Buddhist culture, the Buddhist system was damaged a lot.
Yes.
There was a time that you couldn't find a monk in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
Right? So the Buddhist system, the Buddhist culture was damaged. But anyhow, it was restored. So in between those things, you might have seen some cultural changes. But even if you take the Asala Perahera, even now, I have never heard that someone was asked to do, like by forcefully asked to do this for free. Everyone was paid, even now. So we didn't, in the Buddhist culture, in the Buddhist system, people were respected. People were respected. And
Yes.
they were being paid. They were not being exploited. So the Buddhist values are always kept.
In connection to the political and social propaganda of the society.
It always been kept, it always been guarded, the Buddhist system and the Buddhist values are always being guarded. Even nowadays, we are continuing in that. And that's why it says that you don't have to do any changes to Buddhist culture that we have now. Because we are keeping the Buddhist values inside us. So what's important, like I said at the beginning, the most important thing is, do we keep the values? Do we have the Buddhist values? Do we have the Buddhist philosophy in these things? Now, if the Perahera is somehow change their value systems, that's the place that we have to be concerned. Up to now, I don't see that. I always see the Buddhist value system is there. So it's not harmed. The Buddhist values were not harmed in the Perahera season too. They might be asking that about the dressers sometimes, right? So we are continuing a system that is like, let's say the Asala Perahera we see nowadays, it's like 200, 300 or more than that.
Yes,
it's that much of old. We cannot compare that to the Anuradhapura system, right? So there might be changes, but still we have the values with us.
Yes, Svante. So this importance that the kings had given to the citizens that had been in touch with him, and the citizens all around the island had kind of provided a core essence, the value that comes from Buddhism. And it is such a vital aspect that to find in such a country which goes on a par with the tradition, with the culture, with the philosophy that comes from Buddhism alone, that the kings had come to grounds where had worked with commoners and also had worked along with them and repaid them, as we've talked a lot of incidents related to history. And there can be this notion that made them even to offer the whole kingdom or their throne to this tooth relic, the sacred tooth relic of Lord Buddha. So with that, with all these discussions, with the most important aspects related to culture, Buddhism, Buddhist culture, Buddhist literature and Buddhist philosophy, the connection that we had will be thanking Venerable Dr. Wattegama Subhavi Thero all over again, who enlightened us with such important aspects. And yes, to meet you up with another interesting topic, we'll say goodbye for today. Thank you.
The Legend of Senkanda, the everlasting glamour of our heritage.